Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. I hope you're doing well. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about. I found out a lot overnight about the real reason Donald Trump went in and invaded. Now, I put together a bunch of videos, and you're going to hear a lot of those reasons. Well, come to find out, Venezuela is a very mineral and oil wealthy land. It has more gold than all of the Latin American nations in that area. They have three large deposits of gold in their rainforests. They said it's so much gold. When you fly a plane over there at night, the ground actually illuminates. That's how much gold is down in the ground over there. Donald Trump knows this. They know. And not sonar, but they use some kind of equipment that could look at what the mineral deposits are down in the ground. They said it is so many different varieties of minerals in deep in the ground around that same area where the gold is. They had some metal down in the ground that can actually make weapons and all these different mineral deposits down in the ground. And that's what Donald Trump was after. That's what these wealthy people were after. This ain't just Donald Trump's doing. It's these billionaires and everybody that he has ties with. They all wanted this, y'all. That's who wanted this mess. They wanted to rob and steal that land because it is very mineral rich. It's oil rich. It's got natural gas. That's what they were after. And they used drugs as a front of a reason to get in there and steal that land. Now, you folks in Venezuela, first of all, these rich people are morally bankrupt. When they get in there, because they're gonna get in there and get those resources. That's what they do all over the world. There's a reason why the Most High did not give this white man any resources. He put the resources where the melanated people live. Now, y'all remember, Venezuela was a black country at one point in time. All these light and bright people, they came much later. And he didn't give them any resources where they lived. And you can understand why. Because their greed knows no bound. So I just want you folks over in Venezuela to know one thing before you start cheering. They're going to rip up that rainforest where those resources are. What they're going to do is bring over a bunch of white contractors from the US. You can best believe they're going to be white. And they're going to have them over there ripping that place apart. They're going to destroy the wildlife that's up in there. They're going to take all the trees and shrubbery and all the things the wildlife live on. They're going to strip all of that out. And any people that live, because people do live around the rainforest, they're going to run y'all all off, tear your houses down, just so they can get in there for the resources. That's exactly what's going to happen. Okay, that's why Donald Trump don't want to put nobody in charge. Maduro had a vice president. You notice Donald Trump don't want to put the vice president in charge? He said he running it. That's why he's running it, y'all, because of the resources. He doesn't want anybody but a white man like himself running it. That's what it is at the end of the day. So, y'all, it's the same thieving we have seen over and over across the earth. And unfortunately, because nobody challenges Donald Trump, he's going to get away with it all. When is it ever going to be enough? Their greed is like a bottomless pit. It is never good. They will never have enough. So just be prepared. Lives are going to be destroyed over there because they're going to be digging up the place for the resources, and your animals, they're not going to have nowhere to go. That's what's going to happen. These folks don't care. They don't care about humanity. They care about their pockets. So y'all don't know what you're in for. You may be cheering that your president is gone. I don't think you're going to be cheering for long when you see what they're going to do to Venezuela. That place is never going to be the same once they get their hands on it and really get in there tearing that place up. It is never going to be the same for any of you there. You're going to wish, you may be wishing for your president back. So y'all, let's get into it. Dark Skin Brother, thank you so much for the 33-month membership and support for my channel. Shalom, Lisa, my warrior sister and family in the chat. Thank you so much. I deeply appreciate you. All right, y'all. Let me go ahead and share my screen so we can get started. In fact, the first video that you're going to see is going to be in Spanish, and it is the former president showing a bar of gold. And he did this back in February of 2025. And he was talking about how wealthy the country was in gold. And they are. They are. They got the biggest gold deposits probably in this whole America region. Okay, and you're about to find out the real reason why Donald Trump raided that country. It is not the reason that he gave. But we know Donald Trump, he is notorious for lying. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you, everybody.
Ya Venezuela está haciendo con los cánones internacionales más estrictos los lingotes de oro para su reserva nacional e internacional, para su desarrollo con su propio oro. Y procedo a entregarle 1 tonelada de lingotes de oro a la reserva del Banco Central de Venezuela, hecho por la clase obrera minera de Venezuela. Nadie nos podrá detener.
Venezuela, deep in Venezuela's rainforest, 3 massive gold deposits have been confirmed, graded among the largest the world has ever seen. Over 8,000 metric tons of untapped treasure.
I want everyone to keep in mind that they have the biggest oil reserves in the world. They have 302 trillion barrels of oil. And if you convert that into USD, that is $17 quadrillion. So they have $17 quadrillion worth of oil that's under it. Venezuela's gold reserves are sitting at $8 billion, and they're holding over 180 tons. And this is what they don't tell you and what they don't want you to know. There's a spot called the Orinoco Belt, and that holds an additional 14,000 tons of gold worth $600 billion US dollars. Orinoco Belt, a lot of that gold has been untouched. But there's $600 billion sitting there. Hold on, that's a lot of money. That's getting up there. We're not talking about some petty change, couple $1 million. No. 600 billion will get the big ball players involved. Another thing is they don't have a Rothschild central banking. They don't have the banking system that.
By now, you know that Trump has struck Venezuela and kidnapped their president. The vice president said the president offered multiple off-ramps, but was very clear throughout this process. The drug trafficking, that's the excuse, and the stolen oil, that's the real reason. must be returned to the United States. Watch this.
Venezuela has the largest reserves of oil in the world. Venezuela that has a rich, talk about rich natural energy resources.
Massive oil reserve. They have gold, they have rare earth, oil, gold, and minerals.
I'm sure there are U.S. companies that would like to do business there.
Venezuela, for the American oil companies, will be a field day.
It was always about resources and control. It was never about democracy and liberty. I want you to understand that. This is not new to America. Look at Libya, look at Haiti, look at Iraq, look at every country that we have overthrown a dictator or a president of over the last 30, 40 years. Panama, this ain't new to America, it's true to America. The problem is that the majority of us, or too many of us, are delusional about America and its quest for democracy. They limiting your rights every day. You think they give a damn about somebody else's? It's about rich people and rich people's money, always. And when you ain't rich, you need to look to your left and your right and find your brother and your sister in this fight, because it ain't them. As always, do good, seek justice, keep pushing.
What would you assume is the most major threat on the world stage? Anybody, just call it out. You don't have to raise your hand.
Definitely Russia.
Definitely Russia. That's confident. I like it. Who says Russia? Anybody agree with her? Hands? Okay, great. Who else?
China.
Stop yelling at me, but China, a good answer. Her. Anybody? Who else? China?
North Korea?
North Korea. Any North Korea takers? And Venezuela? Anybody? Nope. Oh, yeah. One guy in the back. A little worried about Venezuela. Everybody's cool with Venezuela? No threat? Okay. Let me ask you this. Which one of these places can claim to have the largest oil deposit on the planet? More than Saudi? More than Iran? Wow. Okay. What about things like gold? More than all the mines in Africa combined? The fact is that Venezuela is arguably the single greatest resource of oil and minerals on the planet. So, why is this country in the midst of one of the greatest humanitarian crises in modern history? Let's meet President Nicolás Reyes. After rising to power on a wave of nationalist pride, in a mere 6 years, this guy has crippled the national economy by half. He has raised the poverty rate by almost 400%. Luckily for the rest of us, he's up for re-election. So, who's running against him? This is Gloria Bonalde. Now, Gloria is a history professor turned activist. She's running against him on a social justice platform and on the strength of, in my humble opinion, just not being an asshole. Analyst predictions, as of today, have the chances of Venezuela's total economic collapse at 87%. On the news, they'll call it a crisis. But on the world stage, they'll call it a failed state. If you've never heard that term, other examples of a failed state in recent history are Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. And if that's not bad enough news for you, well, Venezuela is also the only one of these places within 30-minute range from the U.S. of next-gen nuclear missiles. You will not hear about any of this on the news because the biggest players on the world stage do not want you to. To them, unstable governments are nothing more than the greatest of opportunities. So Russia, China can never be the most major threat until countries like Venezuela leave the door open to our very own backyard.
Did you know that the Bank of England just straight up stole $2 billion of Venezuela's gold? Because for a while, Venezuela was depositing their gold in British banks, but in 2018, they said, okay, we would like to withdraw that now. And the British courts were like, no, we decided you're not a real government, so that money is ours. And 8 years later, they still haven't given it back. They just stole it, $2 billion worth. Maybe they'll use it to buy dental care, at least. But this is the kind of overt economic sabotage that Western countries are doing to Venezuela all the time. And then they turn around and mock Venezuela like, oh, why are you so poor? Like, they wouldn't be as poor if you didn't steal $2 billion of gold. And the US and UK are always stealing gold. They stole all of Libya's gold after they overthrew the government. Stole all of Iraq's gold, too. They had to for freedom and democracy. I think it's about time that Trump invade Britain in order to give Venezuela their gold back. Britain is an authoritarian dictatorship stealing other countries' gold. The king and queen need to be deposed.
Something massive may have just been discovered deep beneath Venezuela, and it could explain everything we're seeing right now. Follow and stay to the end, because what's down there might not just be gold. Reports are surfacing of deep underground structures recently uncovered in remote parts of southern Venezuela. These aren't ordinary caves. They appear engineered, ancient, possibly predating any known civilization in the region. And here's where it gets wild. Geologists claim the area is rich in gold and rare earth minerals, the same materials used for advanced weapons, AI tech, and next-gen satellites. Well, think about this. The US quietly moves a limited number of troops into Venezuela, not a full-scale operation, just enough to secure certain regions. Officially, it's for testing and stabilization. Unofficially, it's starting to look more like a modern-day gold rush, a race for control over what's buried beneath those ancient halls. Some believe these structures could even be remnants of a lost civilization, one tied to global myths of cities of gold, stretching back to El Dorado itself. And the US isn't there for the weapons testing. Maybe they're there to retrieve something that's not supposed to exist. So what's really hidden beneath Venezuela? Gold, lost technology, or something humanity left behind long before we remembered it existed? In spite of secrets buried in gold, truth still finds the light. Okay, so I've done some more digging, and what I found will blow your mind. Follow and stay to the end, because the reveal can't go public here. Everyone's focused on the troop movement in Venezuela, but buried beneath all the headlines is something no one's talking about. Satellite imaging picked up symmetrical patterns hundreds of feet underground, too perfect to be natural. Then out of nowhere, multiple excavation zones went dark on civilian maps. Days later, military transport planes started landing at remote airstrips. No coverage, no explanation. And yet, local miners are saying gold veins were found so pure they almost glow in the dark. Here's where it gets weird. Geologists aren't just finding gold. They're finding alloys that shouldn't exist in nature. And some say inscriptions, not in Spanish, not in Latin, are carved into the deepest walls. If that's true, we're not looking at a gold mine. We're looking at a message left behind, and that could explain why world powers are quietly fighting for access, not for money, but for whatever they found down there. Now, I can't show the actual photos or the satellite files here. I mean, we're talking the dig site, the underground corridor, and an inscription never before seen, plus a photo of a never before seen alloy and a satellite overlay map. But I just uploaded the full reveal to Patreon, with images, the coordinates, and what insiders believe they're covering up. The link's in bio. Don't miss it. Because if this is real, Venezuela might be sitting on the biggest discovery in human history. In spite of secrets, truth always finds a way out.
Okay. Now you know why it had nothing to do with drug boats and blowing up. They blew up 35 of those boats with men on them. All right, trying to convince everybody they were just hauling massive amounts of drugs. That was never the case. Now you know the real reason for the drug distraction. They were trying to get to that country. These rich people, they all know what's there. And Donald Trump, what he did was not for America. That was for himself and his rich buddies. That's who this Venezuela sees is all about. It's not about anybody here. It's about them. So now you know why Maduro had to go. And they charged him and his wife with narco-terrorism. That's what they got charged with. They're in New York, by the way, because I did try to find out where they took them. They're jailed in New York, both him and his wife. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot more coming out in these coming days and coming weeks as Donald Trump, of all people, controls Venezuela. And there's a lot of people that got their eye on Cuba because they believe Cuba is going to be next. That's going to be the next place that gets seized. So, so Donald Trump, we know Donald Trump wanted to take other people's land because when he came into office, his eye was on Greenland and Canada. And now they said he's also looking at Colombia and he's looking at Mexico as well. So if those places are resource rich, you can best believe he's going to try to get those lands, all of them, you know. So I just wanted to give you the update on this, y'all. Right now, because, Venezuela, they were allies with Russia and China, and they don't seem to be saying anything about this whole thing. You would think if all this wealth is over there, they would want in on it. But they haven't really made much noise about Donald Trump taking the president and his wife out of there and taking over the country. He openly gave a speech and said he's taking it over. So we shall see what happens. We shall see, y'all. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. I got another video coming up at 1:45, and yeah, we're going to be looking at Stacey Abrams and something that she has said that went viral. So we will be talking about that more in detail at 1:45. So I hope you all will come back for that live stream. Lisa Parker, thank you so much for the 18-month membership. Thank you for being the great queen. You truly are, Lisa. Thank you so much, sis. And thank you for your support for my channel. So, y'all, I will see you at 1:45. Have a wonderful afternoon. Shalom, family.